everybody. I didn't want you to think I don't see all of you.
Right. We see all of y'all. We're so happy to see your beautiful faces this morning.
Bright and early.
Right?
We're waiting to get started. So we want to kind of let everybody else kind of come in. But I guess I'll take a moment to kind of explain who we all are, why we're randomly here, and why we're talking about diversity. So this is kind of combined pop culture uncovered. We are a local podcast that's been around for 3 years. We typically talk about the intersection of race, ethnicity, gender, pop culture, awesomeness, whackness, and kind of everything else in between.
All those trigger words.
Yes.
Whackness is a trigger word.
I'm just checking. So, my name is Armand. Well, I'll let everybody introduce themselves when we start the panel, but these are some of the most talented people I know who work in lots of different creative mediums. And so it's a real big honor for me personally to be able to be here with them, and more specifically to talk about this panel. This is actually the second time we've talked about diversity here at Baltimore Comic-Con. We actually did a diversity panel, I want to say, 2 years ago? 2 years ago? 2 years ago. 2 years ago. Yeah, time travels fast. And as you might imagine, diversity now is like, I didn't think I would live long enough for it to become a pejorative all to itself.
Well, for it to be a completely different conversation within 2 years.
Yeah.
But that's where we are. So, having said that, we're going to give everybody a couple more minutes to filter in, but we look forward to having a really engaged and interesting conversation. Because the world has changed a lot. Like, when we did this panel a couple years ago, Black Panther hadn't come out yet, Wonder Woman hadn't dropped.
Yep.
I think Moonlight had just come out.
Yeah.
And so, I think we all thought we were going to end up someplace different, but I've been kind of joking with some of my friends, it's like, it feels like this is the second Reconstruction.
Oh, wow.
So, it's kind of like, we've progressed forward in some ways.
Nothing's been burned down yet.
No, that's
Just the right age. Just the right age, yeah. That's true.
We might as well go ahead and get it cracking. We start 4 minutes early.
Okay.
So,
we got a lot of ground to cover.
we might as well. I feel like,
And then we'll just welcome whoever comes in.
You know what? Because I feel like this conversation is going to get pretty heavy and we'll get questions, so I think we should start early.
Yeah.
I think that's good.
Why not? Welcome.
Hi, everybody. Give yourself a
she has
round.
the cane.
I love it.
I kind of like how you strutted in with it.
I know. It's just like,
So that's your carries.
nice. So do you just want to go down the line instructions?
Sure, start with you, please.
Are we being serious today? Or are we...
We're going to be serious when necessary, absolutely unserious when but if you want to use your stage name,
Yes.
use your stage name. That's fine. Go ahead, Belle.
I'm Belle Burr. I'm a writer and an actor. Writer with PCU, actor all over. And so I have a little bit to say about diversity in film and theater and the different ways that has happened and how we can be better.
My name's Pete. I'm a writer, editor, and teacher of communications. I've been with Pop Culture Uncovered really since we began 3 years ago, 4 years ago. It's been a long time. And Belle and I also work on a podcast called The Rebel Rundown, which is Star Wars based, and we also talk about feminism, diversity, and a handful of other serious topics and Star Wars.
What was the name of that podcast again?
Pop Culture
Rebel Rundown.
Rebel Rundown.
Messed up the cues.
See, that's how you know. Shame.
You can't edit it now. I think you're watching it. It's too early. Alright, I go by Kananai Kiva. I'm a seamstress and artist that's located here in Baltimore. Right now I'm selling at Baltimore Book Fest. I make things from ball gowns to comic book flower crowns to...
Which I built, by the way.
Yeah.
Thank you. I stayed up all night remaking more. They were all sold out yesterday. Not even hating. And then I've also gone ahead and I've begun a POC portrait coloring book where I will begin a series focusing on people of color.
By the way, she's also my favorite cosplayer, and she does an awesome
Oh
vision.
crap, I do that too.
Yes,
I haven't seen it.
Exactly.
Alright. I also dress up as cartoons.
My name is Armand. I'm one of the owners of Pop Culture Uncovered, along with Pete, and I'm from the area as well. Also, for my day job, I'm a really boring intellectual property attorney. I'm also a writer and podcaster and dad, and
I'm just saying, you say it's boring until people need it.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Me, I am Gina Torres, and I am actress extraordinaire. My name is Megan Ginyard, and I'm a podcaster with PCU for probably about a year now.
2 years.
No, 2 years now.
2 years,
Time
yeah.
does fly. I am a mother. I am a partner to a wonderful man who is back home in New York. And I'm just an overall geek. Have been since I've been younger. My first foray into geekdom was Archie Comics, getting that out of the grocery store. And of course the GOAT, Batman, the animated series.
Of course.
It's the GOAT.
You said back
Of course.
you know.
We have to specify.
Yeah.
I mean, Batman and Robin is good if you want to drink for every ice punch. I don't.
So you were stupid drunk, is what you were saying.
I do not. Recollect. We have some questions.
But do you like beer?
I am Copeland, also known as Black Manta in Wakanda, also known as Black Manta in Freeland because I wouldn't be allowed in Wakanda. I'm a podcaster with PCU. We do a live show with Phantom Comics every last Wednesday of the month. We do Cause We Black Y'all
Yes.
every month, once a month. I do photography, freelance photography. I'm better than Peter Parker.
He's a web designer.
Well, it don't matter. There's so much pun in them.
I know.
I'm probably known as the most hateful one here.
I don't know.
He's the most hateful, but he's not the most likable.
No, he was the most hateful in terms of Black Panther, because I think Najee tore that movie apart.
No, we were both doing that together. Yeah, I was like, I got so many things that I have to say.
Okay, anyway, that's a different show. That's a different show.
Sign up for that panel.
So, why exactly are we talking about diversity? And I think the simplest answer is because, like, we're talking about, like, when you're talking about comic books, you're talking about stories of heroism, right? So you would want to see, like, all of humanity included in that story. If you're talking about theater, I think Hamilton pretty much convincingly proved this, like, you know, you can slide anybody anywhere, and as long as it's a good role and it requires a lot of talent, that just enhances the overall performance. Like, diversity is about the human family, right?
Right.
So therefore, telling the story of one perspective, for many just one perspective, whether it's male or female, white or black, red or green, anything that's linear limits storytelling. I mean, if there's anything, I'm a diehard Superman fan. If there's anything I can tell you that's horrible about Superman, either they take his powers away or they make him too powerful.
Yes.
And it's the consistent linear storytelling that limits all the creativity of the character. So if you're talking about diversity, you're talking about leaving all the options open, because good stories require spreading everything out as far as possible and then letting just the magic happen.
Yeah.
So, and lastly, I'll say as a father, I think diversity at least matters to me because everybody gets inspired by something when they're small. So I will tell you, and we're going to have a conversation in a second in regards to, you know, who your first real pop culture influence was and why that mattered for you. I'll just say for me it was Flash Gordon. So I'm a little older than the rest of you young whippersnappers on the panel. You know, so I saw Flash Gordon in theaters.
Like we all go come to Comic-Con to have a watch Flash Gordon.
But all I'm going to say is I knew that I wanted to be a good person because I saw Flash Gordon. Because Flash Gordon established for me everything that I wanted to be as a person. Flash was the person who sacrificed. When it came down to the end of the day, he was like, so I'm not going to end up with Dale. I'm going to fly this thing right into the force field, and I'll save Earth. The hero's the one who's willing to make the sacrifice that nobody else will. He gives up his tomorrow for everybody else's. And I was like, okay, this adult look thing, I can do that. I was like, blonde hair I cannot do.
Yeah.
But for the next 15 years, I never had anybody else who looked like me. The next time I had a pop culture figure that was in the film that I could connect with, it was Carl Weathers and Action Jackson.
Oh wow.
And so for all that time, it's like the idea of being, it's just it does. Sharon Stone was in it. Should not have been in the movie theater, but my dad took me anyway. But I say all that to say that, pop culture influences are incredibly powerful. And for me, it was, when I was playing on the playground, people, you're talking about, oh, I want to imagine being so-and-so. They're like, well, you're black, so you can't. The only thing black I could be was Voltron. Because we all understand what the Black Lion was in charge. So I had that covered.
Yeah.
So I guess, Belle, starting with you, who was, the pop culture figure that you kind of identified the most that was kind of, significant to you?
My first two, and they're polar opposites, were Ripley from Alien and Luke Skywalker. Those were my first two because Luke was good, and that's right, Luke was good, and then he didn't have to be changed, he didn't have to be made to be good, he was just good from jump. He needed to learn how to focus it, and he needed to learn how to use his powers the best way, but he was doing good because it was good. And that's so, to this day, that's so rare. Everybody's got to be dark and edgy and, grim dark, and we're not going to talk about that Titans trailer. And I'm just like, I need a character that he was my dude. And Ripley, because she, in all honesty, she reminded me of my mom. My mom was in the military, and my mom was badass, and Ripley reminded me of my mother. And I'm like, yes. But honestly, other than Ripley and Lady J, you didn't see any badass female soldiers in film or television. Those literally Lady J, and then they came up with Scarlet.
Yep.
And then that was it. I can count them on my hand and have fingers left over. And so I was like, I didn't see anybody who looked like me. So for me, those two were the two that stood out. Plus Ripley was she was so smart. I mean, get away from her. She's so iconic. Yeah, okay. Go.
Getting emotional.
Yeah, I love it.
So I agree with Luke. I mean, when I was a kid, that was who I gravitated to, and I would run with my homemade X-wing all around the little trailer park in Albuquerque, just like that's who I wanted to be. And there comes I think a point in every kid's life, every person of color, where you're like, oh, someone basically tells you, you can't imagine yourself as that person. You can't be that person. It's this horrible line we're caught between where it's like, they say, oh, you can't play as this person, you can't identify with this person because they don't look like you. And then when you get older, they say what they say to you is, why do you need someone who looks like you to identify with? I'm like, you're kidding. All of us identified with who we had, the heroes that we had available. And most of them were white. Most of them were male. So I was a Luke guy. So when I think of who it is that inspired me the most, I was in high school when Desperado came out, and I loved Antonio Banderas in that. And then I loved him as Zorro before I realized that the four main characters in Zorro were all from Europe. We're one Spanish person and three Welsh people. So the first time that I identified with a character who I could say this is me. I was Poe Dameron. 2.5 years ago. I was almost 30 or almost 40. And when that movie came out, anyway, it was a month before my 40th birthday, and I see Poe Dameron, and I walked out of the theater, and I'm like, why do I like him so much? My wife, and she's like, well, he's the only Gen Xer in a whole movie full of millennials and baby boomers. I'm like, okay, that could be good. She's like, also, he's brown. And then it was almost like I almost teared up because I was thinking about that. There's a kid who looks like me, the same age that I was when I saw Star Wars, and he can take his X-Wing and run around and have a pilot, and he can imagine himself growing up to be, a pilot who looks like Oscar Isaac. And that, I don't know, that still gets me because I love Luke. I will always be a Luke person above every other character, even Poe. But seeing Poe, it was that was what I've never had and what I've always wanted. No matter how many heroes and characters that I love, that was something that was missing my whole life.
Yeah.
And I got it.
So me and Jim are about to have a moment, because mine was Shayna from Gem and the Holograms. It was like she walked in with her natural purple hair, and I just so happened to have natural purple hair. Unnatural purple hair. But not only was, she can go ahead and she can have, because, even though she wasn't the main star, she was still there. She didn't need the rest of the holograms. No. She was a fashion designer on her own. She had her own business. And she also played for them just because just because we're friends, and that's okay. And it was just seeing that independence around a black woman just kind of featured in one of my cartoons growing up. It was kind of like, this is awesome. I really like that. I want purple hair. And then my parents said no, because they're too Jamaican. But that was kind of like my first moment of kind of seeing somebody that actually looked like me. Aside from like the black Barbies and stuff like that, because they still didn't have the natural hair that I did and stuff like that. But just kind of seeing her, she looked like how I wanted to spend my allowance. Yeah, with all the really cool suits that are all these are outrageous colors. It's like, yeah, I'm playing with my friends on the side, but I also have a whole business, so I can do whatever I want. That is who I wanted to be, and I think that kind of translates now. Couldn't imagine. Right? Right?
Well, for me, there were two. Like I mentioned earlier, definitely Batman from Batman the Animated Series. Watching that growing up, and just, well, clearly I'm not a white male billionaire.
Are you sure?
You don't see us
Not
the same. I mean, but seeing somebody who has this privilege, who has been through something so traumatic that he has devoted his wealth, his entire being, his body, his mind, his soul, to making sure that no one would ever feel the same way he felt, and beating the crap out of people. Definitely sometimes cathartic. But seeing this very flawed character, because he definitely has mental issues.
Oh, he definitely.
But seeing this very flawed person still functioning, still striving to make a difference, still doing whatever he needed to do to make sure that nobody ever felt, that even he sacrifices himself. Knowing that sometimes there's got to be somebody who's not me to get the job done, because they might have an antagonistic relationship sometimes, but Batman respects Superman, and he knows that there's just going to be things that he can't do. And it takes a very strong person to realize their limitations and give somebody else due respect. So seeing that, and then just seeing the different episodes, we get to see Dick Grayson fully fleshed out. We get to see Barbara Gordon fully fleshed out, because I actually like Barbara Gordon as Batgirl. I've liked that. She's great as Oracle, but I've also liked to see her fight crime. And we got to see her having an agency. And yeah, he tried to tell her, you can't be Batgirl. She's like, well, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do what I want to do. So you get to see that in the stories, and you get to see these fully fleshed out stories. We get the, introduction of Harley Quinn, and so popular, she gets put into the comics. So just getting to see all that dynamic play out on the small screen was wonderful. And then also for me, seeing somebody that looked like me, Storm. Like she's OG. And it was amazing because like everybody was saying, like on the playground, we played Power Rangers. There wasn't a black one at first. At first there was.
Come on, Zach.
Right. No, I'm not even talking about that. Before it even got to that, when it was Kimberly and Jason and them, there was no black girl there. So I had to be the Purple Ranger. Does the Purple Ranger exist? No. And then when we got to meet Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, I was April. Or between me and my two other girlfriends, we had to switch between me and April. Or we had to create somebody new. I think I was like Tanya or something. So it got time to play X-Men. I flipped out. I was like, I can be a person. Yes! It was amazing because she wasn't a hip. She wasn't doing it.
My father, he took me to like some of the stores, and I saw Static Shop. And Static, if you've never read a Milestone comic, especially from back then, like Static was Dwayne McDuffie and Dennis Calvin were doing things that were like way ahead of what they're doing right now. Like when I saw Static and I read Static, it's like this dude looked like me. Look at this dude. Plus, his best friend was gay, and Static had to deal with his homophobia and how he grows with that. And that, as a kid, seeing that was amazing. And like Static was that dude. Like Static loved his father, and for me and my father's relationship a lot was like how Static's relationship was with his dad, and it was like, oh, this is the greatest thing in the world. And then they gave me a show, and I was like, video games, but it was the #1 rated show at
Yeah.
the time, so that'd be that. But I also got Zach, and I got to do hip hop keto, even though I know it's super racist now.
The Black Ranger was black, and the Yellow Ranger was Asian. Like,
Super
really?
racist,
Y'all?
super racist.
Yeah.
But I also, and this is important, I got Simon Phoenix in Demolition.
Okay, now just stop.
Because he
Stop.
you
Now,
said Quan.
Y'all
You
think it?
did say
Simon,
Quan.
But I rooted for Simon Phoenix because he
I refuse to discuss any movie whose high point was I will take you to Taco Bell. That is like, no, the movie was trash.
Hey,
I mean, but you put that up against the wooden acting by Sylvester Stallone.
but that's the thing. I got Wesley throughout this, and I got Blade, and we did a 20-year anniversary show on Blade. And the thing about Blade is people don't give it credit.
Yeah.
But Blade back then, they had action figures for Blade. They had the car, they had everything. Now I didn't get it because we was poor, but my friend, like who lived with his grandma, had all the toys, and I was like, oh, I'm going to your house today. We're gonna play. I'm really here to play with your toys. I don't care about you right now.
So, the central premise is the fact that having depictions of people of color in heroics matter.
Yes.
Okay, so taking it from there, go back to our original point about things being linear. So, I don't know if any of you are aware of the concept of this thing called a stereotype.
No, this is America. Why would we know?
Okay, so having said that, it's very easy to have very linear depictions of particular groups, as in like, every woman of Hispanic descent will be
Sassy.
She's sassy, y'all.
Sassy, spicy.
Yeah, spicy.
Spicy lady.
right. Every African American man in a film will be heterosexual
Yeah.
and violent. As of late bald-headed, which at least has put me back in the style.
Know how to play basketball.
But know how to play basketball, yes, because I know how to play, that's when you come out,
Or possibly football.
you get the skull cap in the basketball. And you start going around. So having said that, it's very easy in pop culture to have very linear depictions of everyone.
Oh yeah, the Asian.
Every Asian person is super
Yeah.
The little purple
and has a stripe.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I know
glass-
Sebastian
and
Crab and Cool Runnings. So
Oh man.
right.
So I mean, in terms of when we did this show a couple years ago, what we started was we were trying to get to the point where there were just depictions of people in a positive light, right? Because for a long time, Najee, all we were going to get, there was a person of color in the film with Simon Phoenix. Ugh.
Hey,
But now we've gone further. So we're not where we started, but we're not where we want to be yet either. Because we're still at very linear depictions of people. So, perfect example, for me, Moonlight was a transformative film for me. Because for me growing up, I was told there was no such thing as a person of color who was gay. Like, it was just no.
Yeah.
And that was my general belief. The first time I saw one on film, anybody remember the movie Mannequin? Yeah, okay, I got one.
Tell him
I got
already.
two, thank you.
Tell him
Four,
already.
oh, thank you. So, Meshack Taylor in that film, that established that was not anything that I could remotely relate to. He had no agency, he had nothing to do, he was basically around to, as comedic relief. And that was it. And I can't remember another person of color who happened to have not been heterosexual.
The Revenge of the Nerds was even worse.
Oh yeah, Lamar. That was his name. I was trying to remember his name.
And
Lamar.
homie from True Blood.
No, thank you. So Moonlight for me was transformative because I was like, here's somebody who has life experiences that I'm familiar with. I can relate to it. Him being gay was part of his overall identity. It wasn't the single central driving force of everything. And it's like, that's what we're talking about in terms of where we haven't gotten to yet.
We
Because
still don't have any representation. I don't know about you guys, but I haven't seen that many Latina gay characters in film or movies, or that many disabled gay characters in film or movies. We get Asian dudes and black dudes. There's very few black women who are gay in film. That was one of the things I loved about Black Lightning, was that one of the main characters is a superhero, a woman, black, and gay. And none of those things are a big deal, but yet they're all awesome. And I'm like, it was just, so I can't speak to the Latina thing because I'm not Latina, but Pete, how there's just,
Well, I think what we talked about this 2 years ago, and I don't know how much has changed. We used to say when when big companies say like we're gonna create diversity, what they mean is white women and black men. And that's like the full stuff. And I even talk about when I was a kid, like you would have the white guy, you have the dark haired guy, and the light haired guy. A fat red haired guy. White woman. And then like the second season you would get like some new characters. So you get like one black guy, a Russian with a beard, a talking mop, an alien cat. And then there'd be like this random brown dude who was supposed to represent every brown person. So he was kind of Middle Eastern, he was kind of South American, he had like a really big mustache, and his action figure came with a playset because you weren't going to buy it.
Yeah, I like the,
And
he was supposed to be, he was ambiguous and
Right.
Ambiguous and brown,
like, they were
yes.
just like, you know what, we've got like all this ink still here that nobody's using.
Right.
Just tan it up. What's his name? Jose? No, too ethnic.
Joseph.
We'll just throw it in. So,
He goes by an alias.
Right.
You never know where he comes from. Right.
you might wear a mask.
It's like the reporter on the most recent Ninja Turtles, but not the one they have now, but the one like started in 2012. His name is like Richard.
Oh, Carlos,
Yeah,
no,
it's
it's
like
Carlos
Carlos.
Chang.
Yeah, it's
It's like, they had to reach
His
everything.
name is Muhammad Chang. And
And then we don't even have any
why would-
native characters either.
No.
Like,
Oh,
I think
yeah.
that's
Oh.
the worst.
Racist.
Hold on, he's all the
I think the best that we've ever gotten is Forge. And I feel like
What do you get the forges?
Forge is native.
Right,
I mean, and that's not even just Native American. I mean, First Nations. I'm talking Aborigines. I think we got, what's his name, Watcher? The mutant.
Oh, I
That's the
know.
Aborigine, and he can teleport you. Is that his name, Watcher?
Gateway.
Gateway. I'm sorry. We get that, but we don't get to see a lot of different native.
Well, so my thing is this, in terms of casting, right? Anybody watching The Gifted? No. Man, it's like when you get older
That's all
and
the
you
people
get
watch.
married, it's like but my thing about in terms of how casting works is like, so you have Thunderbird on the show, right?
Yep.
He's obviously of Native American descent.
Okay.
But they didn't get somebody who was Native American to play him.
And apparently,
That does not surprise me.
Native American and Hispanic actors don't exist, apparently.
Well, there's this weird trend where you have Latinx characters who are played by white folks. Time and time again, which is starting to get away from because finally the backlash is like finally there's enough of a pushback saying this doesn't work. But then you also have like phantom Latinx actors and actresses who still don't identify. Like you still don't know. You know, we used to call them like the hidden beaner was what my friend used to call it, which was like.
I will never
I will
eat
never say
that.
that.
I will never say that.
Oh my God! This was years, but he would like, you know this actor? You know this actress is Salvadorian? No, because his name's like Tom Smith. I look at James Rodet
Yep.
from
Perfect.
Sight,
Exactly.
who is about to.
Martin Sheen.
And
That is real
James
Sheen.
Rodet is James Rodriguez, and why he plays characters named Sean Spencer, for example, is an example of like I don't know why we can't have Latin characters played by Latin actors. You either have it one way or you have it the other way.
Yeah.
And I was just going to say to wrap up the whole representation, it was tricky for me because there were more Native American characters in comic books and in pop culture and in geek culture than I can still name more Native American characters in Marvel than I can Hispanic characters in all of comic books.
Yeah.
I can name more women than I can Latin characters. And I guess the most frustrating part of that was just that even now, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I can name one character who looks like me, and he's a sidekick. It's Michael Pena. Michael Pena is the only person in the movies that I can look to and be like, I look even remotely like this person. It's 2018, we're talking about diversity, and that's who I got.
How about this? Helen Cho is the only Asian character in the films. We have Quake and Melinda May, but everybody acts like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. doesn't exist in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So until we got Colleen Wing, who is amazing, Helen Cho was pretty much it. And how many people even remember which movie she was in? I can count you on my hand. 2, 3 y'all, and it's 4 y'all in this group. Yes, also I love your show. And I'm just like, why? the entirety of the movie, even though something really horrific happened to her, and then it was like, oh well, it doesn't matter, because we gotta talk about this other drama. So yeah, I'm like, why don't we have her? And is there, other than Professor Xavier, can you guys name other than Professor Xavier and Matt Murdock?
Disabled, somebody who's disabled.
Technically Hawkeye, but this never comes up. We actually just did a podcast about that, was last month, about the fact that in the films, Hawkeye is the fact that Hawkeye is deaf never comes up. And it's a really important part of his character and his art, and it never comes up. And well, they ruined Hawkeye in some sense. That's a whole podcast.
Yeah,
Yeah.
In the Hunger Games too, they completely just erased
Yeah.
hers as well.
Yep.
In the Hunger Games. I think, I haven't read the book since I was 7. It was her and one of the other dudes, like there was some, I think she was deaf. And there's somebody else in there too.
Excuse me, could you count Misty from Luke Cage and that, since she got her arm?
Now, now, finally,
Prosthetic?
yeah. But does it count when you get a mic?
Yeah.
Well, she still does count.
Disqualified.
That's true. I mean, yeah, but it is. She had to learn how to use. She had to learn how to use it for a good year before she got the arm.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Before we leave the topic, Charlie, one thing that I wanted to bring up with you, because we talked about it before in the past, about the lack of roles for Latino work filmmakers. And I think it was a study that came out this year. It was like 7% of all Latino roles were speaking roles in Hollywood. I know Benicio del Toro, when he was doing his press for Sicario, Day of the Soldier, he was talking about the reason why he took the role. He's like, these roles aren't available for Latin actors. He was like, this is typically a Denzel Washington style movie. He's like, so, then Mel Gibson, he's like, that's the role. He was like, but we don't get a lot of these. He was like, so now they want your franchise out of it. I'm like, I'm all for it. Because typically, I co-star, and so I think, as we talk about diversity and inclusion, it's like, it kind of slips, because it has turned into, white women and black men. And as long as you see that in the poster, you're like, oh, we're making
diverse,
progress.
right?
I started watching the Lethal Weapon series when it came out. And because we love the movies, it's like, I'll go for like explosions and things. And of course, the problematic nature of like two cops basically doing whatever they want to do and not answering to anything, like, didn't taste the same as it did when I was watching the movies in the 80s. Like, Renegade Cops does not sound fun anymore. But I still watch it, because anything lands, I'll watch. And
Really?
okay, it's too late. It's too late. So, but the first thing, you have the Riggs character whose wife was Mexican and died, and he's very close. This character's very close with her father, who was prominent. I think he was like a district attorney or something. He was very prominent in Los Angeles, in the government of Los Angeles. And my wife turns to me and she says, they're going to connect him to drug dealers. And I was like, that's ridiculous. That is nuts. And we watched every episode, and every episode was white cop and black cop team up to bust Latinos.
Yeah.
Everywhere. Like, every brown person was essentially a drug dealer. Every single person. And then after the mid-season finale, the big reveal,
Boom. Yeah.
the judge was in bed with with the drug dealers, and we're like the one guy who was like, this was like this pillar of like goodness in the community. This guy's like, oh, we have somebody in power in a TV show who's brown, and bam.
Has everybody played the new Spider-Man yet?
Not yet.
No.
Not all of us have PS4s. I have an Xbox, y'all. I bought my own.
I got an Xbox too.
So when you're a grown man, you can buy a PS4 as well.
Hey,
You make it all money so you can buy all the stuff you want.
I make adult money, and I have this person called a wife. Just because I have adult money doesn't mean I spend all my adult money.
No, you can't say that. No. Because I am the wife already, and I have my stuff, and he has his stuff.
So you were saying?
I can't anymore.
Okay, but the Spider-Man game, you were making a point.
No. I can't. Nobody watched. Nobody played.
Yeah, no spoilers.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
What I was going to say is Pete's thing. I saw a trailer for a movie. I think it's Jennifer Garner is this star. Family gets murdered.
Yes.
Yeah, but the entire trailer, the first trailer you see, it's like her pretty much destroying the Latinx community. Like, all of the people that are bad in the movie, it's all Latinx, and I was like, what the fuck is that? What is this?
No matter how progressive Hollywood may present itself, they found a fantastic villain for a large percentage of this country in brown people again, in Latinx people again.
And Arabic.
And that was something that was happening since, it was always happening since 9/11. Obviously got much worse.
Yeah.
But in the political climate just in the last 2 years, there's no, who's your villains? Oh, Latin folks. All right, push that one through. Because we're gonna get panic dollars.
Yeah.
But we get this in cycles though. Like I've noticed that like in the 80s it was, in the 90s it would be
In the 80s it was
Asians.
The Russians.
Sometimes you get like that was the Chinese. Oh my God.
For a while, there was the Jamaicans in every Steven Seagal
Right.
movie.
It was Jamaicans, and then it was the Russians sometimes. Like it's always somebody who is not Western European descent.
Well, one of the things that my mom, because we were stationed a lot of different places, and one of the things that she said to me, because I would wonder why people behave the way, because it was incomprehensible to me, and she said, people will find a reason to hate other people. They'll find a reason to hate other people within their own community. Pete and I had this conversation, well actually you, me and Pete, Megan, had this conversation about the way we separate ourselves. Because one of my parents is not from this country, but he's white. And so within that side of the family, there's the African side and then there's the West Indian side. And they make it very clear
That they are
who's
not.
who. And I'm like, but you can get shot the same. Racists don't care.
Right.
They don't care. So it doesn't matter. So get over that. And one of the things, it's one thing to appreciate your culture. It's another thing to separate yourself. You were talking about how like going back to Zorro, how Antonio Banderas is not the right type of person for that part because there's no Mexican representation in that movie. There's no Mexican people in Zorro.
Spanish does not
To Mexico. So, the lack of appreciation of different cultures, but at the same time, maybe we need to work a little bit more together. Instead of, you can all lift each other up without tearing down, I'm better than you because I'm from Africa. Like, this is a conversation that has happened.
Yes.
Well, I'm from Africa and you're African American.
That is definitely a conversation.
It is.
Still
It's like, if someone wants to kill me, they're not going to care about the specifics of exactly.
They're not gonna look at my 23andMe
Yeah, like,
and be like, oh, sub-Saharan African? Oh, you're tired.
Speak for yourself.
You're one of the good ones.
Because, go ahead.
That just also opens the door to the conversation about colorism.
Yeah.
Because I didn't understand a whole bunch growing up. I thought every brown person was Mexican thanks to pop culture. So I see like Hawaiian people like, oh, you're from a different part of Mexico.
West Coast.
Right. And my best friend was Puerto Rican, and he had to like sit me down and be like, hey, we're brown. But
I was like, why you got these Goyas and stuff? Why you got this? Like, you ain't Spanish? He was like, my last name is Ledesma. I am Dominican. What? Like, this doesn't make sense. And he sat me down, we had this conversation. I was like, oh, okay. There are other things. You can be both. And like we just had the podcast at Phantom where we covered Afro-Latinx people in the media and stuff like that. And we talked about colorism. A lot of times when we have these things in the media, like when you're black, it's like, if you're drawn in comics, you're one shade.
Yes.
And your hair doesn't change, you're just one
always
shade.
ashy.
You usually got like a
You're always ashy.
or you got like locks. That's it. There's no designs, there's none of that.
Or you have those straight backs
Oh.
that like have way too much space in between.
Oh, like on your Xbox, because they don't have the hair.
Right, exactly.
or it's very straight.
Yeah.
Like, they did often draw Storm, but she had the long hair.
But let me ask
You
you
have
this
a
question.
Dr. Miracles.
To what degree has any of this changed? Because here's my
No, it has changed.
No,
It has.
because here's my question. So the vast majority of the time, I agree with you. If we were casting somebody in a film, right? You know, it's the Halle Berry is what the standard is for black people, and she's a person of biracial heritage. So, you know, somebody like Simone Missick, who everybody knows from Luke Cage now.
Yeah.
Somebody who, you know, wouldn't get typically cast.
No.
But we haven't got, but not to minimize people of biracial heritage, because now we finally got to the point with Spider-Man Homecoming where it was like, oh, we have Liz Allen, who's a biracial woman who's actually playing a biracial character. Because again, it's the, you know, black people don't come in one shade or flavor. And this is America, which means that everybody's basically a mixed heritage to begin with.
Yep.
So you could be, you know, black as midnight and your great grandfather was white. It's just so.
And that's also kind of a point I want to bring up too.
Okay.
Like, we're talking about how there's more than one way to be black. People also forget that there is more than one way to be white. Whiteness is also made up, because depending on what time in history, white is something completely different than it does now. At one point, Italians weren't white. At one point, Irish were not white. At one point, Jewish people were not white. So that's also something that you have to keep in mind, that the goalposts are always going to keep shifting to suit the needs of the people in power.
Yeah, that's true.
So when you get immigrants from, you know, Eastern Europe or from Ireland, and you feel like they're taking all the jobs, what are you going to do? You're going to other them. So now you're not white. Now you're this, and now you're that. And then when you want to go ahead and penalize a different culture or community, that's when the goalpost shifts. Now, we want to get you to help us fight against these people. So now you're Irish.
You're one of us. Yeah.
Now you're white.
Can I ask
And
you
it's
about
simply
something
insidious.
for a second? Can I ask you something about Shuri and the casting of Shuri and Black Panther?
Yeah, we can go into that.
Oh, so
We can talk about that, because I got feelings.
you have feelings.
I got feelings. No, not who was chosen, because I love the show.
I love, yeah.
Okay, so which one of you would like to get the backstory?
I'm doing
I think Belle.
Okay, well, since you're the actress, go ahead.
it. Well,
It was a dark.
it was the darkest story night. No, so, do you guys know who Amanda Stenberg is? Okay, so she was approached originally.
They identify as non-binary.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
that's a good.
So they were approached to play Shuri. And they said no. Straight up, just no. I'm not right for this part. Because they're biracial. Well, somehow or another, I feel like the Hollywood Reporter broke the story that, you know, Amanda Stenberg turned down the part, and it became this whole thing. And it was just like, no, I'm not right for this part. Pick somebody who is of African descent, who is, you know, not half white. Pick someone who's not, because it's not a big deal. And that was the end of it as far as they were concerned. Well, no. They had to keep pushing and pushing and pushing, and so it became this huge deal, and like people were giving her crap because, oh well, how dare she, like, I was like, she was damned if she didn't, and she was damned if she did. She was damned for talking about it, because other people kept asking her why she turned the part down, and then, or they rather, and on the other side of it, people were like, well, you know, why are you doing this? And you should do whatever you want because it's representation, but it's the wrong kind of representation. So go ahead, Megan.
No, I mean, basically going into this, I feel like you have to consider the character, not just their character, who they are, but how they look. Because a lot of the times, especially with black people, how you look plays a great deal into your role in your station in life. Colorism. Nina Simone, like Zoe Saldana, should have never played that part. She should have never been considered. Yeah, that's a lighter skinned black person that's playing a darker skinned black person. And why that means so much, why that's so spellbounding in that. Lighter skinned thin. So why they play such a big role is because Nina, not only just that, but Nina Simone was I am dark skinned. I am black. You will see me. I will not be silenced. You will hear me and you will respect me for who I am. So colorism was a big part of her life. And on the flip side of that, I thought that Chadwick Boseman should have never played Thurgood Marshall.
Nope.
Because Thurgood Marshall, he played on the fact that he was lighter skinned. So he knew that there were going to be times where he could push the envelope better than our darker skinned person. That was played into legal, and you can go back to Dred Scott. You can go back to different cases how using your lighter skin privilege factored in, because a lot of people don't realize that Rosa Parks was not the person they wanted to have on the bus. She was simply chosen because she was older, she was lighter skinned, and she had a better reputation. The person that they wanted to have was younger, pregnant, and darker skin.
Yep.
Because, you know, and so these things played into it. So you have to consider not just the character, but it does matter who is being represented.
Yeah.
Because there's a movie played by me, and they asked Scarlett Johansson. I'm fighting.
We're not gonna get into Scarlett Johansson. No, okay.
See, that's the thing though. I think with the Thurgood Marshall thing, I think his family wanted him. The problem I have a lot of times with Hollywood is that, one, it reminds me of that thing Samuel Jackson got in trouble for when he said that black British actors shouldn't play black American. And it's a weird thing because there's only like 12 roles. You know? There's only like 12 roles. Denzel takes up like 4.
Not anymore. Michael B. Jordan takes like 3 of those roles.
It was like Denzel and Wesley Snipes took the 6. They would split. If you Blair Underwood, you might slide in.
No, that's okay. That's a BET.
You know, like, now it's like Chadwick. You look at Thurgood Marshall, James Brown, and Jackie Robinson. None of these folks look alike. And yet you got the same people playing these people. And so these are things also when you think about, like, take for instance, you think about Get Out, or even more so like watching Legends of Tomorrow, right? And I think his name is Franz. I can't think of his last name, but he plays Fire.
He was
right?
in
And so he's a British black actor, right? And they have this episode when they go back to slavery time, and like Vixen is like, we need to do something about it. He's like, no. And like, if you're black American and you see that in the writing, how do you go, nah?
And neither one of them are American.
Yeah, it's like,
Neither one of those actors
there's no
are
way.
American.
I see that in the writing, and I'm like, what you mean I'm not gonna? I don't care about the timeline. We're going to There's no way. And so these things happen, and there's a lot of times like these representation of real.
Yeah, they do go back, but it's like, but what you're saying, like, they skirt around it, and it's like, well, that's a whole other conversation. We don't have enough time. Which is the writers' room needs to be more diverse, because if you go back in time and have a situation where characters are set during problematic times,
Extraordinary.
yeah, well, people of color, if they're writing it, then they'll approach it differently than someone else will. So that goes into the whole comics thing and the writing thing, which is, it helps when we are writing our stories.
So 2 quick notes. One, I'm going to apologize because we had a wonderful discussion in regards to women.
Yes.
That thanks to all of you probably talking to people, y'all have burned up my outline. But I have good news. We have a whole panel tonight.
Yes.
On that topic at 5 p.m. These same talented women, minus my unnecessary voice, Belle will be running that panel. So, only because the topic deserves a full-throated discussion, and I don't want to take what should be, like, at the bare minimum, 45-minute conversation to say, in the next 60 seconds, could you give me your journal opinion about, the patriarchy and men, personal behavior, whether or not you like beer, or any other issues with this week.
Scarlett Johansson is trash.
I do want to take 30 seconds to say things about what's going here. So I'm assuming you're familiar with Confiscate and Gamergate. I don't want to burn your time saying a series of really obvious things. But I'm just going to say as my general statement. The reason why I call it the second Reconstruction is like, make a little bit of progress and people are like, oh, they're actually upping. You're asking for like freedom and justice and equality and rights.
Basic human
What's up with that?
How dare you want oxygen?
Right, it's like
representation.
But I'm kind of leery for saying this could be the second Reconstruction, because what came after Reconstruction? Jim Crow.
No, I disagree with you. I don't think we're not that far from there. But what I will say is this: the idea that people of color can't be legacy characters, because that's really the heart of what Confiscate is. It's insane because Anybody gonna tell me that Miles Morales doesn't speak to the heart of what Spider-Man really is? Are you really gonna tell me that Duke can't run next to Batman? Because it's like, after having a procession of dark-haired brunettes who either manage to get themselves shot or stabbed. Right, I'm like, Robin has been the most plagued wolf for a while. Like, does Bruce train these kids?
No.
So it's like, you might as well get, a young African-American who has a superpower where it's like, look, being bulletproof, having something might be an advantage, because Robin, just the outfit with the leotard is not getting the job done. I do want to give you guys a chance for questions.
Yeah.
So I want to stop the panel here and open it up for questions. So
I
start
saw
out-
your
And I think anyone, and you can ask any one of us.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Go ahead, Bill.
gentleman's had his hand up for a second. Go ahead, sir.
And I think the point that you made was came after the fall of Reconstruction. And I'm not a historian per se, though I do read history. But I think that stage was pretty much set with the infamous 1876 Tilden Hayes Compromise.
Yes.
And I think we'll pretty much set the stage 2 decades later with Plessy versus Ferguson. And then as far as the second Reconstruction, I think the period of 1945, 1954, and 1975 pretty much has been characterized as that second Reconstruction. And if anybody follows the Reverend William Barber, and now Bishop William Barber of Marl Bundy's in North Carolina, and with the Newport People's Campaign that he had, Dr. Liz Theo Harris, where I think he's pretty much looking at this current era in the 21st century as being that third Reconstruction. And I'm gonna stop right there.
No, that's knowledge. No, and I appreciate it.
There's a third Reconstruction, if not in my lifetime, but in our children's lifetime. I just hope, learn from the previous 2 Reconstructions this, that once Uncle Thomas and Aunt Thomasina is pushed back, how to try to keep it from resurrecting itself.
Yeah, it is.
Right. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
So this is mostly for the femme people on the panel. Do you feel like colorism disproportionately affects women in casting and media, or is it pretty even across the board?
I think it does affect.
Cassie, Media.
Yeah, I would definitely say yes. Because like you said, it's very easy to place a man in there. I think that's what we want to see.
And women get objectified.
Women get objectified.
And then, just like how Taraji said, it's like once you're 40, you're put out the pasture already. So I mean,
Right, for
now
women.
you have so many other
And
things
then
kind
add
of
dark
piling
skin
on top of the dark. Yeah.
I'll give you an example from personal experience. I auditioned for Dracula way back in the day. And first I was told, well, they're not ready for a black Nina Harker, even though you gave the best audition. Then I was told, yeah, that face. And then I was told, well, you can be one of the brides because you're a little too dark. I was told that to my.
That was me too.
Yeah.
Or when I was in, and this was down in like North Florida. You know, if anyone here is from Florida, the more northern it is, the more southern they think. So I was trying to play the role for Belle, but my face wasn't suitable for Belle, and that I should have been Mrs. Potts because, yeah.
So the darker you are,
My dad came
harder
in,
it
and
is.
then he took care of me, but he's even louder than I am. But it's just one of those things where it's like, it's always one of those things where it's just like, it's like when you go and you say that, you always take a couple of steps ahead. There's always something that reminds you, that always makes sure it's like, oh wait, you're getting too ahead of yourself.
Know your place.
Remember your dark.
Yeah,
Know your place.
yeah.
Gentlemen, had a question?
Yeah, so you guys, you mentioned it, but it kind of got passed up, but the underappreciation of Native Americans in comic book culture. Most recently, things that just pop into my head are Batman Incorporated from the early 2010s.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That superhero didn't even leave the res.
Yeah.
What's that supposed to represent? And then most recently, next thing that comes up is Suicide Squad. Slipknot. Wasn't even in the trailer. He was actually played by a Native American actor though. One of the most famous Native American actors.
I was so excited, and then
But he gets maybe 2 minutes of screen time and 3 lines.
Yep.
That's it.
and
So,
he's a huge Native actor. He's
yeah,
huge.
he's big in a lot of Native American indie films and stuff. But we've seen more appearances, but do you guys think that there's going to be progress to actually accurate representation of Native Americans? Like, there's natives that live outside of the city. I mean, there's natives that live off the reservation, and like that term "off the reservation" has become like such a demonized phrase for somebody that's like, you know, lost, like, you know, where they should be. Like, they got to be put back in their place. Like, do you guys see like any progression for like any sort of respect or dignity coming back to Native Americans in this type of culture?
Do I see it? Yes. I'll say this, as an intellectual property attorney, I can tell you I was watching the case for the Washington football team.
Yeah.
I was watching them with great interest because to me that was the bellwether, right? Because for me it's the look. I mean, this is my personal opinion, and I'm just Washington D.C. and we're all friends. So I'm gonna be honest with y'all. Do I think that it could be potentially better? Yes. I think when other people of color are willing to be allies with each other, I think that changes. Because my premier problem is that Washington D.C. Well, it used to be Chocolate City, now it's kind of they call it Latte City. But nevertheless, you have a lot of fans of that team who are people of color. And they have no problem with that insignia. And if that insignia was anything else closer to their own ethnicity, it would be handled entirely differently. So I see things getting better when people see that and they see themselves in it. And for me, that's kind of like I'm sure everybody's heard of intersectionality, but that's the underlying thought. You know, when we all are willing to listen to each other's concerns and to be empathetic. So I'm saying empathetic, not compassion. Compassion, I just feel bad for you. Empathy, I'm moved to do something. I think then things get better. And I think the rest of it is just awareness. I
was going to say that I'm just not simply in tune with a lot of Native creators or actors or actresses.
And there's so many.
Right, and that's not to say that they're not out there, we just don't get to see it. And I think that's something we have to explore within ourselves, no matter how you identify. We can't look to Hollywood to tell our stories. We have to push our own narratives. We have to have people, family, friends, whomever, we have to get our own stories out there. So with the proliferation of like YouTube and Twitch and, you know, Stitcher, but, you know, podcasts and things like that, we have to support ourselves. We also have to not be afraid to take that chance, step out, and be heard. And I implore that especially with Natives, because this is their country. So, like, I will always say that. We are illegal. So, you know, they deserve to be heard, no matter if they're on the reservation or off. And just, I don't want to go too much into it because stuff like just pipelines, which just piss me off. And I'm gonna fight somebody, and you know, I'm always getting threatened.
Yeah, so I have a question about trash representation and canceling people.
Yep, go for it.
So,
I have a list if you want to compare
yeah.
notes.
I know, right?
And especially when there's so little representation available. Basically, it's been long enough, so I'm just going to say this out loud. I thought Crazy Rich Asians was trash. There was so many problems with that. First of all, like just the really obvious stuff. They had people making fun of Asians with Asian accents in the Asian movie that takes place in Asia. Like, what the fuck was that? Ken Jeong should be banned from all film. He is basically a walking minstrel show for Asians, basically. It's really ridiculous.
That's how I feel about Tyler Perry.
And then they had a character with his son. Oh, sorry, Dave?
No, that's how I feel about Tyler Perry
for black people.
Yeah, there's a lot of trash representation out there. They had a character, I don't even know who it is, but the guy who plays his son is like 5 different types of Asian stereotypes, just negative Asian stereotypes rolled into one. They had, and that's just like the blatantly on its face stuff. The other blatantly on its face stuff is they also had, in some cases, wearing turbans to be scary. Oh yeah, exactly. They're all servants. Some of them are guards meant to look scary because they have turbans on and beards. Some of them are like valets that you see for like half a second on the screen. And then all of the Filipino women were like maids, and they had no agency. They were just straight up servants, basically, as you stated. And then that's not even, like, the classism is just, it's in the title. So I don't know.
We should have a conversation when this is done. I have a few things, because I thought I was the only one that noticed it, so thank you.
Thank you for noticing it. I didn't want to say anything.
Because it's like we want representation,
We just watched that last night.
Yeah.
And all the things you said, I saw and I thought, but I thought, okay, at least they they all are gonna be seen now. People are gonna know their names now. So they at least got through the door. And so now, that's the thing that I feel like traps us, but gives us a little bit of way in. Is that, you know, we had to play the maids, we had to play the butlers, we had to play, you know, the scary guys in the turban.
Because it brings about this conversation that we're
But
having.
then we can be seen, so then maybe that
We
person
hope we can be seen, and not 20 years later still
they can
doing the same
They can get some power in there.
Yeah.
But the thing is, that's not the conversation like 99% of the people have.
And that's what
Did you hear what she just said?
Oh, which,
She said, well, then the question becomes, do you want to walk through the door as a security?
no.
And I don't want to be.
People have actually asked me, like, would you rather have no representation? I mean, so that movie is also different is because they really separate different Asian ethnicities, and this is a problem that we have in this country. There's not
that's
really
what
an
I was
Asian
about to bring up.
community because, I mean, it's more about how people look at us and portray us and assume things about us versus how we actually are, right?
Yes.
It's not a shared experience other than the racism we face, basically. But the thing is, I really hesitated to say anything about it, but if it was any other context where there was something really, like, just blatantly on his face, I would speak out against it in like half a second. There's literally a guy, for example, and this goes across the board, like there's a guy who's going to sign autographs today who said some really trash things. I don't want to get into that right now. But he's going to be here signing autographs, and a lot of people don't really want to speak out about it because of who he is and what he's about. You may or may not know who I'm talking about. We can do that later. Yeah.
But my response to that is this: is like when we don't speak out, like, look, Ethan Van Sciver was supposed to be one of the driving forces behind Comic Skate, right? I was a diehard Green Lantern fan. I wouldn't buy anything that is associated with him. If DC ever brings him back, I wouldn't buy anything. It's like, to me, that's like when you get moved to go do something. It's like, look, I mean, the reason why the world, to be perfectly honest, and this is me being a lawyer on my soapbox, the reason why the world is a jacked up place is because extraordinarily great people sit and look at really horrible things and say, I don't want to get involved. And so my whole thing behind intersectionality is like, look, I didn't go see that film because I had a feeling it was going to go down that road to begin with. And I'll just say, I think that's the same argument we're having in our community, because Najee and I will sit and give you a master class on Black Panther.
Oh, man!
And the depiction of and to give have a discussion about how it was a one-note depiction of African Americans that was extraordinarily limited. If you had ever heard anything about the Black Panther Party, trying to tell me that Eric Killmonger was an accurate representation of what Black people aspirationally wanted was like, no, he's the example of when you hate the monster so much, you become the monster and fight people.
Just to speak to what you were saying, it's that frustration. Like, yes, you know, it's great that, you know, it starts the conversation, but it's 2018. We've been starting the conversation. We've been stalling that car for 30, 40 years, as long as I've been alive. And watching something, and to hear that reaction, it reminds me of like my own relatives, who we buy into the depiction of our culture. We become the internal racists because we think that's it. Like, I know so many people in my own family who embrace the most stereotypical, like they have Speedy Gonzalez stickers and like t-shirts and stuff, and they're embracing it. Someone's like, well, that's one of our own, and I'm like, that's and I get it, because it's like leaning into this cartoonish depiction of your own culture because it's all you had. And so for generations, I mean, that's like 70, 80 years of cartoons, just that one character. But for a lot of people, that was all we had, and all we had became the permanent thing where it never got past that. And there's still, like, do we lean into the cartoonish depictions of our culture because we see representation, or do we shut it down and say, well, we may not get anything else again because if nobody turns out to this, what will they turn out to something that's a better depiction? And it's like this horrible tightrope to be walking because you never want to be wrong, and you never want to be wrong on behalf of like the people who are like you.
But that's why, when it comes to these types of things, when you see these things, yes, it is a door, but at the end of the day, it's technically, you're getting scraps.
Yep.
And it's time
and I don't
to
want your
stop.
scraps.
Yeah, it's time to say that I'm tired of getting scraps.
Yeah.
I want a full meal.
Yep. And unfortunately, I have to leave it there because we're actually out of time.
Yes.
And there's another panel's getting ready to start.
Yes.
We're Pop Culture Uncovered. You can catch us online at popcultureuncovered.com. The Patreon page will be up by Wednesday.
Yes.
So
We're on iTunes and
still with iTunes and Stitcher.
Maybe the Windows Phone, maybe the...
Throw it away.
Hey!
It's always away.
We're at 5 p.m.
Yeah.
So 5:15, some of these same talented panelists will be talking about Me Too and Geekdom.
In this room again.
In this room again. So if you enjoyed this, please make sure you stop by again. We love having you.
Yes.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great convention, everybody.
Yes, enjoy. Sing your hands, brother.
was actually better. The way you portrayed it, sorry to bother you, was actually better than